Hey everyone, my name is Zach.Cooper, and I am excited to share with you the ministry work I'm doing with Intervarsity Christian Fellowship at the University of Oklahoma. So, this is our vision statement, which is students and faculty transformed, campuses renewed, and world changers developed. Now, this slide is to prove how big of a need the college ministry field is. And that is, there's about 20 million college students in the country every year. And then also, it is a really critical time in their lives because what they're studying and what they're shaping their worldviews to be will kind of set them on a trajectory throughout their life. So it is both a large population and then a critical time in a person's life. And now this slide ties it in with Christianity, and that is we found that the vast majority of students are really interested in talking about spiritual things. They want to take a look at what worldviews they grew up with, what did their parents believe, what do I believe, do I want to change that? So they're really interested in having deep conversations about theology, about God, about different worldviews. But then we also see that a very small percentage of people who were involved with church before college stay involved in church after college. So there's a lot of dropout in terms of church activity. So those two slides speak to why college ministry. Then our next slide is where we get into pictures, which pictures are always the best part, I think. And so this top picture here is taken in the middle of campus at OU, and it's this nice, beautiful outside shot. And what you're seeing in the picture is something that we do about 3 weeks every semester, and it's called tabling. And so 3 different weeks throughout the semester, we set up the little pavilions, we set up posters, we set up some tables, and we have our student leaders out there running it. And then us as staff are preparing the student leaders. We're giving them the training. We're making sure that they've got all of the logistics prepared for the tabling. And so, for example, last semester, the tabling I helped with was for an outreach program, and we called it the colorblind proxy, because proxy is what we call our evangelism type tabling. And so basically what it would be is during the middle of the day on campus when students are busy walking to class or food or whatever, we're just standing out there asking, hey, would you like to take a few minutes to talk about ethnic reconciliation and about colorblindness? And we get some of the students that are like, yeah, sure, I've got 5 minutes. Yeah, I'd like to talk with you. And they stop and talk with us, and we ask them what their ethnic story is, where do they come from, what their ethnic identity is. And so they start explaining to us where they came from, what their story is. And then we ask, oh, that sounds great. Would you like to go through our posters with us? And they say, yeah, sure. So we go to the first poster. And the first poster would be, it said, what is good about your ethnic story? And there are words like generosity, family, food, hard work, things like that. And we give them a few stickers. And we say, put the stickers on what words stick out to you about your ethnic story. And they'll, talk about what they liked about their ethnicity. And then we go to the second poster, and it asks, what is bad about your ethnicity? And we got things like racism and hate and arrogance and lying and things like that. And then we ask if there's anything bad about their ethnic story, and they'll talk about it, and then they'll put stickers on what they identify as not so good about their story. And then we go to the third poster, which is the story of Jesus and the woman at the well. And this is where the staff has kind of trained the students, the student leaders, to like unpack that story in like 2 or 3 minutes. And we explained how, Jesus was a Jew, the Samaritan woman was a Samaritan, and how the Jews and the Samaritans hated each other, and they usually never had anything to do with each other. And so this story shows how Jesus cared about crossing ethnicities and going to someone who his ethnicity said never talk to. Instead, he went and talked to this woman at the well, and he got to minister to her and share with her about the love that he has for the world. So we also read the verses of that story in the gospel, and then we end it with, hey, would you like to continue to talk about us, or talk with us about Jesus? Would you be interested in studying this more, seeing what else the Bible has to say about ethnic reconciliation? And if they have time, then and there we keep talking to them. If they're like, no, I gotta go to class soon, then we're like, okay, great, and we hand out like schedule of events a contact card where they can give us their name and number so we can invite them to things later. And yeah, so that kind of, in a nutshell, I explained what tabling is. And then, so that's the top picture. And then the bottom picture is something we do every Thursday night called large group. And we have on average between 80 to 100 students attend. And we have this big conference room every Thursday reserved for this event. And we call it large group, but we actually break off into a bunch of small groups. In the picture, you might be able to tell there's just a bunch of pillows on the floor in circles of about 6 to 10 pillows in a circle. And then what we do is we break into groups of, 6 to 10, and then we have some kind of icebreaker to introduce everyone in the group, get to know each other a little bit. And then after that, we hand out the Bible passage that we're going to study for the night. And we've printed off, 100 plus copies of that passage and 100 plus clipboards to put it on. And we have like colored pencils and markers, crayons. And then each group basically is like a small group studying the passage, and they're analyzing it. And we read it aloud together, and then we circle all the things that we find interesting, or we write down questions we have. We, color coordinate if you want to use the highlighters that we have. We just analyze the text together as a small group. And we do that for about 20 minutes, and then usually one of the staff or student leaders will go up to the front and kind of MC the whole room discussion. And so they'll be like, hey, why did Jesus repeat himself 3 times? Does anyone have a good idea? And hands will raise around the room, and people will be like, oh, my group was thinking it meant this, or my group thought that might be in reference to something else. So basically, we're just facilitating the entire room and allowing people that have found some kind of insight that they want to share a chance to share it to the whole room. And so that goes on for a little while, and then we wrap it up. We do some worship, like 2 or 3 worship songs, and then we do prayer, and then we do the announcements for what's coming up with our events, and then yeah, we break. And usually there's like 20 students that want to stay up until like 4 a.m. playing board games or like debating different things about the Bible. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so that's large group, and we can afford to do these large logistical events because here at OU we have around 80 student leaders, and that is a lot. Like the average Intervarsity chapter is probably like 4, maybe 5 student leaders. So we have just been super blessed with a really huge, thriving chapter. And so yeah, we have a lot of student leaders, and so that means we can like divide up the responsibilities. So we have like 4 guys doing the audio video crew. They're in charge of that. And we have the hospitality crew who make sure to have the snacks and the icebreaker questions. And we have the new student outreach crew to do the events for like building up the new students that are coming in as freshmen or transfer students. So yeah, we have a lot of student leaders, and we can do a lot of events, and it's pretty exciting. And I'm so excited to work with them for the school year. Now for the next slide, that kind of shows us our 4 like main focuses with InterVarsity with our events. So the first one is about drawing students to Jesus, and I kind of explained like our tabling, that we're talking about Jesus and kind of trying to draw people into talking about him. The next point is teaching students about God's Word. So yeah, like large group, we have our Bible study portion. Also, we have about 12 small group Bible studies that meet weekly. Some are girls only, guys only, co-ed. We'll pick different topics for different Bible studies. So if people are interested, they can go check that out. Our third point is really poignant in terms of the current political climate, and that is we care about ethnic reconciliation. So, for example, with the colorblindness proxy, that was dealing with ethnicity. For like the Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we did a prayer walk, and so we invited several churches in the area, and we had the OU Gospel Choir, and we had about 200 of us that just made this big circuit around campus, and we're just praying for God to move at OU and to move in our country to combat racism and other destructive things that tear our ethnicity differences, like tear our ethnicities apart with our differences instead of bringing us together. And then our final point is about mission work. And so, like right now, because it's June, and every summer we have a mission trip for the whole month in San Antonio, and that is a really big deal. We have a lot of students that participate in that, and as staff, we would be in charge of running the mission trip and you know organizing all of that. So that's something I get to look forward to next summer is the mission trip to San Antonio. So that'll be pretty good. Okay, so this next picture is like a really good story because I always want to leave people with a story that really explains like why InterVarsity, why ministry, what's so good about it. And so this story I'm pretty excited about. I like it a lot. The picture there is of downtown Tulsa, and it's taken about mid-March. It was the first weekend of spring break, and we did a weekend mission trip to downtown Tulsa. Now, I was just a volunteer, so I wasn't assigned to like run it or to help out with it. But that Sunday night, I felt like I should call one of the staff. So I called up Cal and said, "Hey, Cal, I'm free all Monday. I can drive down, I can bring you supplies, I can be an extra pair of hands to help pack up after we're done with the mission trip. Like, do you need any help?" And Kyle goes, "No, we have everything covered. However, we would really like it if you come to our prayer walk." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What time is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's at 7 a.m." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Because it's like a 2 hour drive to Tulsa. So, yeah, I woke up at like 4:30 and got ready and drove to Tulsa and got there in time. And I did the prayer walk with the students, and it was really good. While the students were walking around downtown Tulsa praying about the specific poverty issues that downtown Tulsa faces, I felt like I should pray for the students. So they're praying for issues of downtown Tulsa while I'm praying for them. And we, go around a couple city blocks and we finish it up. And it's the last event of the mission trip. And they handed out response cards. And the one question said, "Did you learn anything significant this weekend?" And then the second question was, "Do you feel like you need to make a significant decision based off what you learned?" And one of the students who I had never seen before, I didn't recognize him before this, he just broke down crying. And we asked what's wrong, and he said, "I don't know Jesus, I'm not a Christian, and that scares me." And so we got around him, we prayed over him, we talked to him, and he gave his life to Christ. And it was just such a beautiful moment, and it was great, and we celebrated, and it was wonderful. And what a way to end the mission trip. And then in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, why would someone who's not a Christian go on a missions trip? But I got lunch with the staff, and they like unpacked to me what it was about this guy. So yeah, he wasn't a Christian, and none of us knew him except for one of the students there. And he wasn't a student leader, but he just participated in a lot of InterVarsity events. But he also had a class with him, and so he would just ask him in class, "Hey, do you want to go to large group on Thursday nights?" And he would usually say, "No, I'm not interested. I don't really want to do that." And like, "Oh, hey, do you want to, do this other InterVarsity event?" And it's like, "No, I'm not interested in that." So then he asked, "Hey, what are your weekend plans this beginning of spring break?" And this guy was like, "I don't really have any plans." He's like, "Would you like to go on a mission trip to Tulsa?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So that's how he even got invited to the mission trip and then went on it. And so while he was there over the weekend in Tulsa, God really worked on his heart and really impressed upon him a relationship with him. So yeah, that this story is amazing because that whole drive back from Tulsa, I just realized like this was worth it. It was worth me waking up early, driving to Tulsa, and doing this prayer walk because I got to play a small little part in his salvation story. And so that just was an amazing feeling. And so this story is really good because you have the guy who wasn't a Christian and now is a Christian. You had his friend who was just participating in university events, but then now he's a student leader. And then you have me, who was just a volunteer, but I was like, oh, I'd rather do this full time and not just a few hours. I want to do this all week long. And so that kind of helped lead me to want to become full time staff. So yeah, that's the story behind this picture. And I just love this story a lot. So let's go on to the next slide. And this is just to kind of come back to how important it is that their time of their life in college and how it kind of sets their future up a bit. So Intervarsity has been in America for about 78 years, and we have over 100,000. Nope, that's one more zero. We have over 1 million alumni, and they're off doing ministry throughout the world. So we have people that come through the program and they're in all these different degree programs, and then they graduate and they become like future leaders and future members of society. We have quite a few seniors that just graduated last semester that are going on to med school, and we have one of the students. He's pretty awesome. Pretty good friends with him, and he wants to be in politics, and he wants to be a politician, and he loves like local politics, not like federal, but just city politics. And we need people. We need politicians that have a heart for God and a heart for what Jesus has a heart for and want to live for Him. So it's just a really great feeling to know all these years of investing in the students while they're in college. They graduate, they go on to become the teachers, the engineers, the artists, so forth. That now they're more mature in their faith, and now they have a clearer picture of what it means to live for Jesus. And it's just a joy to be a part of that and to help like mentor them in that. So that's that slide. And now we get to talk about money. And that is, I think there's around 1,400 InterVarsity staff in the country, and the vast majority of them are responsible for raising 100% of their salary. And I'm in that boat. And so the budget that I was given is 46 grand. And that is a pretty big number, and we'll get to breaking that down a little bit in the next slide. But the bullet points here are basically explaining kind of a qualitative description of what kind of my job duties are. So with 80 student leaders, they're doing a lot of the direct running of programs. But then us staff, there's 7 of us, we are kind of one step back, and we are mentoring the student leaders. So, I'm helping some of the student leaders with their Bible studies, and I'm talking to them weekly, and I'm asking them like, hey, how's your schedule for the Bible study? And, have you picked a passage for next week? And how's your quiet times with God going? Like I'm doing mentoring and coaching and developing them as they're going into campus and running Bible studies and tabling and so forth. So that's a big part of it. I mentioned summer missions earlier. Our summer mission trips we do, the staff run that and prepare that, help the students through that. And yeah, so I kind of caught a lot of like the big picture of kind of what my job entails. As far as that 46 grand, that includes living expenses, the fun stuff like rent and utility and insurance, that kind of stuff. But it also involves some of the ministry costs. For example, there is Urbana, which is a missions conference that is held every 3 years in downtown St. Louis. And we're expecting about 16,000 college students this December to attend it. And it's super great and awesome, but it also costs roughly $500 per person. I mean, depending on if you're late for paying or you get the early bird. But I would say on average it's about $500 per person. So, that's like a line item in my budget. My detailed spreadsheet with my budget laid out in more detail is the $500. So that's kind of gives you an idea of what this budget entails. Now, that is a big number to throw at people. So what this slide does is kind of parse it out into like smaller, more realistic gifts. And for example, I kind of broke it into about 40 different gifts. That's all the left numbers added up. So this is basically saying like if, 17 people gave $50 a month and 12 people gave $75 a month and so forth, all of that added together would be my net budget. Now, I, of course, like pictures a whole lot, so I decided to make a little graphic instead. And so this slide I had a lot of fun making because I'm a nerd like that. And so that whole big rectangle overall represents the 46,000. and then each of those different squares and how they're different sizes represent like what fraction of that is each individual gift from the last slide. And so that's really helpful. Like if I'm presenting to a really wealthy, successful businessman who's like, I could give this guy $10 a month, or I could give him 500 a month, and I don't really know what he needs or what kind of impact I should make. Well, like this kind of gives them a visual representation of the different amounts being how much of my actual budget that would cover. So yeah, that concludes most of our money talk. I will end it with my contact info, which you can find in the video description or somewhere. However you want to contact me is great. If you feel led by God to help support the ministry, that would be awesome and it would be a blessing. And I would really appreciate that. And I would love to have financial partners, people partner with me, and together we're doing the ministry work at OU. So yeah, pray about it. If you feel led by God to help be a financial partner, contact me. I'll get you set up there. And yeah, I would love to answer any further questions you have, talk to you, pray with you, all that good stuff. So yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation. It's a great honor to be able to serve God's kingdom in this way, and I'm pretty excited about it. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you later. So, yep, see ya. Bye.